Hello, and welcome to Access Humboldt's Community Voices. My name is Paul Bressoud, and I'll be your host. We're speaking with Julian Lang, artist, poet, musician, writer, and member of the Karuk tribe. Welcome, Julian.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, good to see you.
I look at the information about you, and what pops out to me, the theme is keeping culture alive. Can you talk about the projects that you're involved with?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Karuk tribe and descended from Wiyot people here from Humboldt Bay, and then over in Siskiyou County, the Shasta people. So, and over time, I've discovered more and more about my kind of heritage, and the Wiyot part was a mystery because we were always raised as kind of people growing up as kids, but there was always this story about Humboldt Bay, and I could never figure it out. And then later on, I found out that we're also my great grandmother's grandfather's father was a Shasta Indian. So anyway, and they were able to speak Shasta and the Karuk language. So.
Now, is this something you've been interested in since you were a kid?
It's a thing that all Native people are. We don't believe in the American dream. We believe in the earth and that we're descended from a place. So our job is to reconnect ourselves with that. So it isn't so much like being interested in as a kind of a hobby. It's more like it's a part of your job to connect yourself, and reconnect yourself with your kind of ancestry, your heritage, and all of that.
Is that something that elders and tribes are helping young people discover nowadays?
Yeah, I would say that's been an ongoing thing. It's funny because most of the elders that I was able to speak with, they were all descended and spoke our languages as their first language and all. And now, I would say the youth now, it's a weird time for young people of any kind of background because of just I guess the connectivity that exists, with all this online stuff. So, and then there's no elders who really speak. I speak my language, the Karuk language, and teach the Karuk language, but there's so many of, say, even my generation that have had no training or know nothing about their language. So it was pretty much a loss, a cultural loss that has happened.
Is that the emphasis, to try to reinforce the culture through language?
Well, for me it is. I really see the number one goal of the U.S. government was to erase Indian identity. And so from, after the Indian Wars of the 1860s, 1870s and all that, then there was a concerted effort by the military to wipe out Indian identity, Indian culture. And they did that by removing our languages. So the first thing you did was get beat down to not speak your language. And then, so in that language, though, is all of the keys to, the universe.
In those transition years that you're talking about, in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, wasn't it a practice by the government to take young people and send them to American schools away from their tribes?
Yeah, it was right up in the 1960s, 70s. I was sent from Eureka High School. I was at Eureka High, and big long story there. But I ended up getting sent to the Indian boarding school in Riverside, and so that was still happening. Some people that attended, the students that attended, loved this place. And whereas they're from other reservations, from other states, other parts of the country, and maybe it meant something to them. But California Indians we're a different kind of breed of cat from, say, Plains or Pueblos and all these other folks.
How so? How would you explain that, Kat?
Well, we're really connected to our place. I mean, it's just kind of bred into us that we need to be from here, from this place. You know, Humboldt County, you could call it Humboldt County. I think, what was the county before? It was the, I can't think of the name of it, but Orleans was a county seat, but it was Humboldt, Del Norte, and Siskiyou County was one massive county at one point. And that's where most of the folks, you know, that I'm thinking of, the Karuk people, Hupa, Yurok, Tolowa, Wiyot, Shasta people are all from here. And we're all very sedentary. You know, we can go to the exact spot where we're descended from.
Was the effort to move kids to boarding schools to send them far away from their places?
Oh, that was a part of it. It was a pretty diabolical scheme, but one of the things that they really wanted was to mainstream Native people into society by removing them from their ancestral home, from their families, and then teaching them a trade and then bring them into society so that they would have no use whatsoever for cultural knowledge or any of that. And, you know, for some it really worked. But, you know, now we have, it's like this, you know, when you come from a war and you have post-traumatic stress. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how families now have to go through this whole process because their grandparents went through this removal and all. So there's all kinds of repercussions for removing. I mean, it's like I don't know where you were raised, but where were you raised?
I was born in Los Angeles, and I moved here when I was 18 years old, so I've lived up here for over 40 years.
Yeah, so if we decided, no, you need to go and live in Arkansas, you know, just totally remove you from your place into a culture that is so foreign that you could, you know, you wouldn't even be able to, you know, function at least for a while. And fortunately, you speak English, and they speak English there.
Well, let's talk about that. It seems like a miracle that languages would have survived this separation.
Yeah. Well, I think that it is somewhat of a miracle, and that's kind of what language is a miracle in the sense that, you know, it contains, it's the kind of code for all this indigenous knowledge and for all of this indigenous understanding of the world and how humanity and nature and all of us, how all of this goes together. So it is a miracle, and there were lots and lots of, I would say, really hardy people that decided that they were not going to lose their language.
Can you tell me about a group I read about while looking at your story, the Advocates for Indigenous Language Survival? What is that?
Well, ICLS, we call it ICLS. ICLS.org is the website URL. And so anyway, the Advocates is a group statewide, you know, back in the 90s, there was a group of folks that had a benefactor that said, what can you do to help, you know, Native California? And so it ended up being a gathering of folks, and I was happy, you know, to be able to propose this project of a master apprentice. So I knew in my travels as an artist, as a cultural spokesperson throughout the 90s, that I knew of these different groups where the elder person and this young person, you know, teenager, young 20s, was working and learning all this cultural knowledge. And so I was thinking, who are these people? I knew of 7 families, and they said, you know, I was saying that we should select 7 families and then couple these people, the master with their apprentice. And some were working with language, some were working with their traditional music and cultural knowledge. But we decided on the language, and so
Was this the model that others in the state
this
used?
is international now. It's
international.
It's an international model, yeah. So the master apprentice model started here in California.
Wow.
We had some early successes that really kept us afloat for a while in terms of funding. People, we learned what the magic of language revitalization. We're able to kind of define that in a programmatic kind of way, which was new. I mean, it new up to this point, and then the model then was, people would come to our trainings and our events. We have biannual events, and where we bring people in from lots of various communities, and that kind of has also grown, so that at Humboldt State, for example, we have the Live Your Language Alliance, which has a biannual gathering of local Northern California Indian tribes, of which there's quite a few.
So ICLES meets at a state level biannually, and then your group meets specifically up here
in Northern
also
California.
Biannually.
Right, yeah.
And then are the group from Northern California, they're also part of the larger state group? They go down and participate?
Yeah, many of us are. And then a lot of the tribes, the tribal governments have established a language program. So they also have language programming. I know the Yurok Tribal Languages program has been getting a lot of press lately for all the work they've been doing in the schools. And
how many languages do you think there was originally spoken in California by
I think
the native
there was
population?
something like, I want to say 300 languages.
And then what has been preserved today?
So now there's about 100 languages, 110 languages.
Wow.
That are still being spoken. And some have fluent speakers, elders, and others have none. So that's the new challenge. So we've kind of, in the meantime, we've created a program called Breath of Life, where those tribes without speakers they're brought together, say at UC Berkeley, where the biggest archive exists of linguistic field work and all of that over the years from 1900 on. And so all of that, we kind of like train people on how to access the archives. A lot of this stuff is handwritten, so how to decipher somebody's scribbles and all of that. And
it must be fascinating.
It's really
the research of that.
It's a fantastic thing, and it's really a moving thing too for a lot of the folks, because they end up finding, field work done in which their grandparents or great-grandparents were the consultants with these various, linguists.
Have any languages been resurrected through that?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
So San Francisco is the home for the Ohlone, we call them. Well, the Costanoan language is one of the Ohlone languages, and it has, there are several different Ohlone tribes have reestablished their language. They actually have speakers in their language, and they're so pretty vibrant. If small, I mean, we're talking about, could be 30 people throughout, however many, 5 million people, 10 million people.
Well, let me ask this question. Even, and we need to wrap up, unfortunately. This fascinates me. Even if you have 30 people, and they begin speaking the Ohlone language, could other people get interested in that language and pick it up, and it could grow again? Is that the goal of ICLES?
That's the goal is, So, there's the organization, native organizations are tribes. And so there's tribal groups. In the case of the Costanoan, they're not federally recognized, I don't believe, but they are recognized by the state. And so they have a political mechanism of some sort, an association or something like that. And so these folks have regular meetings, and they grow and kind of expand and contract and expand and contract, but they are learning their language. So it's like every day they learn more and more and more. It's like
fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great
Well, I hate to even stop in a sense. I just can't. It would seem so exciting to bring back these languages and go ahead and reconstruct that history and that culture. But maybe we can have you on again sometime. Julian, thank you so much,
thank you very
for
much.
coming on Community Voices. Fascinating. ICLS, tell people where they can look that up.
ICLS is AICLS.org, ICLS.org. And also here locally, the Ink People is a sponsor for my organization, the Institute of Native Knowledge. And we too, that's been kind of our sponsoring organization to conduct language classes. We have weekly language classes here too.
Well, thank you very much. Julian Lang, great guest. This is the end of this segment of Community Voices, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.